Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hello and welcome to An Unconventional Life. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Strickland, the founder and CEO of Dissertation Done. And today I have with me Dr. Jennifer Gardella. Dr. Gardella is your social media expert. She can help position you as an expert and drive traffic to your goods and services so that your phone rings off the hook, which is amazing for anyone who is in that expert space. She works with just a select group of clients and helps them with monthly SEO, blogging, and social media support. She actually writes your strategic plan for you and optimizes your profiles, and then does all the work for you. So that's just all amazing. She's a speaker. She's been a blogger with the Huffington Post. She's been a speaker at the PA Conference for Women. She's done a TED Talk presentation. She's an alumnus of Rutgers University. Dr. Gardella, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Russell. I appreciate it.
You are 100% welcome. Before we jump in, I want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Dissertation Done. At Dissertation Done, we primarily help adult doctoral students through the dissertation process. So if you're a doctoral student and you're approaching the dissertation process, the best thing you can do is proactively reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. That's dissertationdone.com/done. And we'll help make sure that you never hit any of the snags or potholes that we're going to probably be talking about with Dr. Gardella today. But if you are like most of our students and you are hitting those snags and potholes, again, dissertationdone.com/done. We'll see if you might be a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program. Now, if you're beyond that and you want to be an expert like we're going to be talking about here with Dr. Gardella, one of the best ways I can think of to really establish your credibility beyond having the first name of doctor is to be a published author, to have literally written the book in your area of expertise. We help folks with that, get you from the blank page to becoming a published author in less time than you thought possible. And we can help you with that if you go to dissertationdone.com/book. That's dissertationdone.com/book. So that's the commercial. Dr. Gardella, again, welcome.
Hi.
So, like I ask most folks, the decision to start a doctoral degree program is an odd one for most people. For us, we're the crazy ones, and we decided to jump in. What prompted you? What was your motivation to pursue your doctoral degree?
Well, thanks for asking. I'm nothing but honest. So I grew up with a dad who had actually had an EDD from Rutgers University.
Oh, wow.
I went to Fordham, where my father went. I then worked at Rutgers after I graduated from Fordham, got a master's degree for free because I was an employee. By the way, I highly recommend that route to fund your PhD program that's really if you can do it.
My wife currently works at Duke University, and the benefit's not as great as it used to be, but they do drop their tuition, I think, down to like state level tuition.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're a sibling, not a sibling, a dependent of an employee, and so my son's like looking at Duke, kind of like, yeah, that might be nice. So we'll see.
Not a bad place to go.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, so I got a master's from Rutgers, and I finished up my master's degree. I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was still working full time. I knew I was going to stay home. They had an EDD program, and I went into it and realized it was all too much on our family. My husband at the time was getting his MBA, so there was just a lot of education and initials going after people's last names anyway. It was kind of enough. And then fast forward several years later, I've had 3 children at this point, actually not several, about 4 years later. My little one was going off to kindergarten, and I thought, well, I was not really able at that time to get a full-time job. My husband was working at that point between 2 different cities, none of where we lived. And so I said, well, what's the next logical thing to do? Let's go back and get a PhD. Sure. Rutgers at that time had converted the EDD part of the EDD program was converted to a PhD program. It was largely ego driven for me at this point. I had taken 9 years off, and I said, what's the best thing that I can put after my name that's going to make up for these 9 years, right? Because I had run the PTA meetings and the Girl Scout troops and all of these different things. And I was like,
you get a whole credit in corporate America for that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of work, it's a lot of the same skills, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience to get back in. My professors, who probably would deny that they ever said this to me, they said, well, you really haven't done anything in 9 years. So we're going to make you go through the whole application process.
Wow.
And before anybody even gives you a recommendation, we need you to get your GRE scores in. And I said, what level do you want me to hit? And they told me, and I exceeded it. And I'm like, are you guys ready for me now? So they let me in. That I started in 2007, and I finished up about 6 or 7 years later in 13.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when you said it was ego driven, I look at that a slightly different way too. For a lot of folks, it's identity driven.
Oh, yeah.
Which technically is the same thing, but it's like calling somebody normal or average, right? Everyone wants to be normal and no one wants to be average, even though they're the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, I see a lot of folks that have this issue of they're identifying in their hearts as a doctor even before they finished everything. And myself, I personally started when I was like straight out of college. And I went through a doctoral degree program and almost finished, but got to the point where my thesis advisor died. And that just allowed me to reflect. And it allowed me to reflect on the fact that I didn't want to be a poor graduate student for another 3 or 4 years, starting over again with someone else. And so I went a different path for a while, but it, kind of like The Godfather Part 3, it pulled me back in. And I finished that degree, a different degree actually, but finished a doctoral degree some years later. So I think that that's common. Whether people go away and come back is not so common, but certainly once you get bitten by the bug, you feel like you really need to finish.
Yeah, and if you have the drive to go and get a PhD, that is such an unusual thing for anyone to want in the world. Like, most people graduate from college and they're, never going to sit in a classroom again. They're never going to take another test. They're never going to do anything. So if you have the drive, I think it's a path to pursue.
Absolutely. And there's we're going to talk about this, but there's so many extraordinary, valuable, exciting, interesting opportunities that come up once you hit this. Sometimes one of my previous guests on the podcast says, opportunity doesn't just knock on the door. It comes in the window, down the chimney. I mean, it's like everywhere. So,
exactly.
So I'm looking forward to talking about that. But tell me, obviously very prepared, went out, they challenged you to get a GRE score and you said, okay, we've got that done. What happened as you got into the program? Did you find all of it was just as easy as that, or how did that go for you?
I had something to prove to myself going into my PhD program. Honestly, I was a non-traditional student. I already had 3 children. I had babysitters that I had to coordinate. I had a family at home that was always waiting for me. But there were a lot of other older parents in the room, which was kind of fun. And what I loved is that I was in an intellectual community with a lot of diverse learners and with a lot of different age groups, and we all are still in touch. And I think that's real, even if we're just friends on Facebook, but I know, like, for instance, I'm looking for a teaching job right now. I know that I can call, and I did call last week, not only one of my advisors up at Rutgers, but I called one of my fellow students. We haven't kept in touch more than Facebook in probably 5 years. And she was right there for me. So there was a certain bond that brought us all together. And when you, go through the process then of helping each other, some of us were quants, like I love numbers. Mm-hmm. And others, really like to do things like read and write, which was not one of my fortes or favorite things in the program. So when it was time to do things like study for qualifying exams, or we banded together, it was really neat.
Yeah, that's good. What do they say about like relationships born of crisis, right?
Yeah, exactly. Shared stress.
Yeah. So you mentioned, getting through. Tell me a little bit about your dissertation process. What was that like for you? Like you mentioned, you had the support network, which is very important.
Right. So I had a great support network of students. What happened during my dissertation was that there were, I'm going to say, 4 or 5 professors in my department at that time. Okay. And Rutgers is great because they have a PhD advisor for all PhD students in the school. Yeah. The 2 of the professors were never going to be able to work with a student like me just because of interests. Mm-hmm. One professor was retiring, and another one was then going to be my dissertation advisor. It was really great. Yeah. Just at Rutgers, at least at that time, I don't actually know what they do now, but you had to do 2 short projects topics that kind of are leading towards your dissertation, finish those with this particular professor. And then I was speaking actually at a huge conference and heard that he had left the university. And I thought to myself, why am I hearing this in New Orleans when I was just on campus? Like, what is going on? I think that's the timing of it. I definitely heard it was either New Orleans or Colorado. And so sure enough, he had hightailed it out of the university due to a personal issue. And we did not have, there were several of us that were left high and dry. I then was not able to transition to any of the other professors in my department. And they tried to counsel me out of the program, hey, look, you can go down to Penn or you can do this. I'm like, I'm not starting over. I'm not redoing any part of this. I'm finishing. And so I actually wound up going to the PhD advisor and I said, what do we do? And he goes, I'll take you on, but instead of having a highly quantitative dissertation, we're going to have, there's going to be a big qual piece because that was his. And it turns out that I did the dissertation that I was supposed to do. I mean, I'm truly a believer in what happens on your path is what's supposed to happen on your path.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was an unbelievably stressful experience, as it always is for anybody.
Right.
Right down to I put the wrong date on the cover sheet that all my committee members had to sign and had to find a typewriter and white out that, literally a half hour before it was submitted for graduation.
Wow.
But I did it. And it taught me this beautiful lesson in just getting it done,
Yes. Yeah, I think that's so important. I think that the fact that you did get, a lot of the experience coalesced for you and was something that you could really appreciate. Is something you were a little lucky about, I think, in my experience. But that notion of knowing it's time to get things done. Here's what I need to do to get it done, whatever it takes to get it done. People don't often go back and say, oh, there's Wite-Out on this page here. What did you do? They're like, the date looks fine. Let's move on. And so many of our, it's just a microcosm of so many of dissertation students that I talked to would have thought, I got to get rid of that sheet. I've got to redo it. I've got to maybe go find those signatures again and all that kind of stuff. When in fact, all you had to do was just, make a little mark on it. It wasn't perfect anymore, but it still got the job done. And a lot of our students need to understand and appreciate the difference between getting the job done and having everything be perfect.
Yeah, and I think that was something else that I learned at the very end. My personal life had consumed a lot of time, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm graduating in 4 months. Well, that meant that a lot of people had to align around me, and they were not willing to do that all the time. And so, when there were holes in my data, when I needed yet another rewrite, I didn't know about services like yours. Like I felt very much on my own, but I was like, I don't think everyone understands. I'm graduating in May. I'm walking. I'm ready.
It's important that at least the people in the university agree with you on that too. I mean, that's a discussion I tell our students to have with your faculty members, your committee members all the time, because some of them just don't care. And they're like, if it happens, it happens. But a lot of people are reasonably decent people. And if they know that this is your goal and they tell you it's not a laughable goal, then they're going to feel somewhat responsible for it as well. If you don't do your part, that's on you. But they still expect you to do your part, but they're going to try to make sure they do their part as well is the thing.
Right.
And I know so many students I talk to like, oh, I haven't had a discussion with someone. Wait, you want to graduate in 8 months and you haven't told someone I'd like to graduate in 8 months? It's a good idea to start setting that discussion and start setting those expectations as soon as possible. Because if nothing else, they understand why you're coming at them irate in January that, you're still working on your proposal or whatever it may be.
Right.
Already set this expectation that you want it to be able to graduate in December. And unless they told you, no, that's just not feasible, then they implicitly agreed with that.
Right.
So, well, tell me, I know that you said that you work with non-traditional students who sometimes might suffer setbacks in writing their dissertation or finishing. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
With writing my dissertation?
But with talking to individuals about that process of suffering setbacks, both in writing the dissertation and in actually finishing the PhD program.
Yeah, so the only thing that I can tell people to do is, you have to make it, and I've learned this now. I have 3 children. One is out of college, one graduated from college, 2 are in.
Awesome.
There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of things to do in the world. Yeah. And when you are looking at your dissertation and a family and probably a job these days and everything else, you have to prioritize. And the two things that you can pretty much kiss goodbye are sleep and a social life. And, everyone's like, oh, but I don't want to, or, and I'm like, oh, okay. But then the rest of your life is going to suffer. Yes. So when I was at the very tail end of it, and I was beyond stressed, I put people around me who would do nothing but encourage me. And like one thing that I did was I had my whole first draft spread out on my dining room table by chapter, and I posted it a picture on Facebook, and it gave me a sense of community at that point. Like I had people that were really rooting for me, even though I refused to go out to dinner with them anymore. Like I couldn't do anything. It was all about, and I was teaching at the time also at the college level, not full time, but it was enough. And so, yeah, it's about putting the right people around you to cheer you on. And then being realistic. Like your dissertation may turn into a book, it may not, but it's never going to turn into anything if you don't graduate.
You'll get it done. That's right.
You can always turn it into more. You can't always turn it into a diploma.
Right.
Eventually you run out your time.
And that's exactly what I tell, I have so many students, they'll come to me and they have all of these, bright dreams about, I want to have turn, this is my dissertation, I want to turn it into a book. I want to solve these problems. I want to help these people. I'm like, no, we're going to cut this down. We're going to make this smaller. We're going to put it in a very little box, and you're going to do this thing, and you're going to get your committee to say yes to you. And then after they say yes to you, then you can do anything and everything else you want. But for now, let's do this. Let's focus on this little thing and make it happen.
Right.
And that little thing's not so little, but it's much smaller than most students come in thinking it is.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And another thing I'll say to someone who's saying, hey, I don't want to give up my social life. I don't want to give up sleep. I need this, that, or the other. That's the way that Dr. Gardella did it. That's the way a lot of people do it. But you have choice. What you have to understand is there's priorities and you deciding what's important to you. I not too long ago started really aggressively trying to lose weight. And if someone told me you can't eat bread, I would be like, what are you talking about? I like bread. But that's a choice that I made when I saw, here's what I have to do, and this is what I need to accomplish. That's a choice that I made. I'm not going to be doing that, at least for a while, because I see what it does and I see what my goals are, and it's not compatible with my goals. So you have to decide what that is for you. And one of my other podcast guests deals with people who have drug addictions, and he mentioned that's such a powerful thing. If you tell them you have to do this, they are really hesitant or they're really concerned about it. They're not ready to do that yet. But if you tell them, well, this is what you want to do, how do you want to do it? So many of them will come to the exact same thing that you would advise them to do anyway. Right. So just understand, it's your choice, but you do have to have enough time to get it done. So if your day is full already, something's going to need to change somewhere.
But I have a daughter who's up at the University of Pittsburgh. She's a junior studying for the LSATs. And one thing she just started doing, which I did hear about during my dissertation writing, she gets up every day now at 6 o'clock. Now they're lucky. It's during COVID. There's nothing going on. I could never have gotten up at 6 o'clock during college to do anything, let alone study. Yeah. But that's what a lot of people do. That's how they get through that dissertation, or to your point, book process, right? Yeah. There's only so many hours in the day that you have. If you're not a night person to write till midnight, then again, lose the sleep, but do it first thing in the morning. And that's what my daughter's doing. So there's lots of ways to get around it. Excuses will never get you around it. So you can lodge all the excuses or stack them all up. Right. At the end of the day, you either have that degree finished or you don't.
Right. Excuses don't get accolades. So,
do not get diplomas.
And for most of the students that I work with and the adults we work with on other things, your 6 o'clock is 5 o'clock because
right.
You have to get up early enough that, most people would get up around, 6:30 or something to get ready for work and all the other things. I'm lucky enough that my kids are in school at home right now, so I can actually sleep right up to like 7 o'clock if I want to. But yeah, when I'm getting up early and working on a project or something like that, it's 5 o'clock. My business coach gets up at 4:30 every morning. And this isn't for a project. This is like just what she does to get things done. I'm like, I don't know, man, that's hardcore. But whatever works for you, that's the point again. It's choice.
Absolutely.
To tell someone you have to do it this way, they pull back and they say, who are you to tell me what to do? But if you tell them this is how people have done it, how are you going to do it? They might say, yeah, I'll do that too.
Right.
It's all about choice. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned business. You started your own business and you help people do some interesting things. Tell me, what was that process like? So after you graduated, tell me what happened after you graduated, and take the story to starting your business.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. So at the end of about a year and a half before I graduated with my PhD, I started dating a friend from high school.
Yeah.
Not a lot of stories start at that point at the age of 44 or 43. And he owned a law firm in central New Jersey, a divorce and family law firm that had all of a sudden lost, like, the phone stopped ringing. So it was $1 million practice, and then the phone stopped ringing. And it was in the day of when things like blogging and social first became very important.
Mhm.
And lawyers were killed by what was going on in the digital space. And so he knew, and he had received emails, Twitter for attorneys, SEO, things that we all now completely take for granted, right, in the business world. And he said to me, look, I need all of this information synthesized. What better job for a PhD student, right? Take all this information and make me a list of what I have to do.
Yeah.
It wound up turning into a job where I got my start, which was really neat.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to the beginning of 2013, again, just finishing my PhD, the relationship ended, therefore the job ended, which was interesting as well. And so I went, gangbusters to finish the PhD. And then it was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I lived in Lawrenceville, New Jersey at the time. And I called my buddies over at Educational Testing Service. And I got that same line again. Well, you really haven't done anything. Like, you had a PhD, but you still have been a stay-at-home mom, and you have been working in the field, and, you didn't publish that much. So I was like, and so they said, look, we'll help you out a little bit. We'll give you a job. You'll make like $35,000 a year. I'm like, I can make that as an adjunct teacher in my bunny slippers. I am not doing that. But I also on the side had this very interesting skill set of helping small business owners, like I had done for that law firm. What I had done for them was reclaim the first page of Google. So I started this little business that I thought was going to go gangbusters, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to be sipping Mai Tais in Tahiti in no time. Turns out you have to network and do all these things that they don't teach you about in PhD school at all. Learned how to do all that. Bigger clients started to come into my world and willing to pay me a couple $1,000s a month. Mm-hmm. Some less, some, but I should say $1,000 a month was like the average. And I went, I only really need 10 of these guys a year. 10 of these guys paying me $1,000 a month. I've got a 6-figure business.
Yep, that's right.
This could be awesome. At the same time, I was also teaching. I always kept my toe in the higher ed teaching, whether it be at Rutgers University in New Jersey or at Rutgers. I loved it, and I felt like I was still connected to the academic world, but I was going to hang a shingle. And, the beauty of owning a business, especially the business that I own, is that I can work around my schedule. So I have, there's a lot of benefits to starting your own gig. But I also say it's really just trading stress. As you know, we don't report to anybody. We're not building anybody else's dream. We can't get laid off tomorrow.
Right.
However, where are the next clients coming from? It's just a different type of stress but that was the progression of how I kind of backed into it. And it turns out I do social media and blogging. My PhD is in educational statistics, research, educational psychology, those lines. Mm-hmm. There's no better degree to have to do social media and blogging. I know how people learn and absorb information, and I can measure the heck out of it in Google Analytics. So, and it's kind of fun because people are like, well, how do you know so much about analytics? I'm like, do you not know? Like, I look at all the degrees on the wall. Which way are they?
Right.
Like there's a lot of degrees up here. So numbers are my thing. So don't worry, I got this.
Cool. Yeah, I actually had, before I went into my second PhD program, where, like I said, I walked away initially and then came back. I was working in corporate America. One day, a guy who wasn't the guy that hired me, things happen, drama unfolds, and he got pushed away. And then slowly they tried to chip away at all the people he brought in so that they had their people in. And one day somebody walked into my office and was like, yeah, you're going to walk out of here with whatever is yours. And that's it. We won't see you anymore. Bye.
Right.
And I went from making good money to no money in an afternoon. And so I decided, well, that's not going to happen again. I'm not going to have one person be able to have that level of control. And that was, probably close to 20 years ago now. But that started the ball rolling for me. I went through adjunct teaching. I was teaching, what they call full-time adjunct. So I was adjuncting at several places. My wife had our benefits in terms of health insurance and things like that. And then, you got the bunny slippers, and I didn't use bunny slippers, but you can work when you want to and where you want to. And that's the blessing and the curse of that kind of work, is that, you can work where you want to, when you want to, where you want to. And you probably should be working wherever you are. It's the flip side, until you get a level of control over it, and you're running the business instead of it running you.
Right.
So for folks who, and I've talked to a lot of our students, have these aspirations to hang out the shingle, they all want to help in some way, which is the thing I find so rewarding about dealing with these people. When you peel back the layers of the onion, you ask them, well, why are you doing this? Why did you want to pursue your PhD? Always it comes down to wanting to help something, seeing a problem that they thought they can make better, somehow helping. And so when we talk to them about how they want to help, a lot of them, coaching and counseling and consulting come up. What advice would you give to folks who are, let's say, maybe, just about to finish up their doctoral degree, or maybe they have finished recently and they need to, or they want to, they're thinking about this idea of building something that doesn't exist to help people? What would you tell them?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, you want to at first protect what you offer. And I mean, protect it because there's a really big opportunity, for lack of a better word, when you start off to be the jack of all trades, right? Like, oh, I'll take that project. I'll take this one. Of course I can do that. And before you know it, you really have no idea what it is that you offer. So someone calls and says, what's it like to work with you? And you're like, oh, I do this and you do that. And people don't want to hear that. They want you to be an expert in one particular thing. Having said that,
everything to everyone, then you're nothing to anyone. So you've got to make sure,
jack of all trades, expert in nothing, right?
But even that really sells it. Literally, if you think you can do, what do you need to do? I can do it. Like, no, everybody's going to be like, no, that's not what I want. I want somebody that can tell me, here's what I do. This is who I am.
Right.
You should spend as much of your time pushing people away as you do drawing them towards you. Because when you're doing that, the people that you are trying to attract, they can appreciate the fact that I am this person. I'm not that person. You pushed away that person and you brought me in. You're the right person for me. So psychologically, that's hard for business owners, because you do want to, I do projects that pay money. Whatever project you have that pays money, I do it.
Right.
Get over that. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely offer services, tie whatever it is you do to a result for your client. So make sure, Russell, if you look at all the big internet marketers today, they always tell you, keep people out of jail, help them build their business, help make their home life happier, do something with a tangible result that they need. That's critical. I'm learning in the market, because in my space, it's really hard to tie exactly what I do to a tangible sale, right? So I'm actually introducing new programs into my business to help my clients with that aspect of it a little bit. The next is protect your brand. That's something that I didn't do. So I have a lot of different logos and a lot of different websites and a lot of different, and they all kind of work together. You can see the bigger picture. They don't work closely together to make money, which is a big problem for me right now. Again, I'm blessed because I've built my name up, but that's the last point I want to bring up. Build your know, like, and trust factor. And you have to be relentless about this. I backed into some interesting things and forced myself into some very interesting places to get the notoriety. And the PhD, when people hear, oh, it's Dr. Jen, that opens a multitude of doors. I get hired all the time, especially by big law firms, because they know if they bring me around a table of lawyers, no one's going to question me, because we've already cut through that ego on education, right? Because lawyers think that they're highly educated and smarter than everybody else. And I'm like, I think we're all as smart as each other. Like, we're done with that. But build other things in. I've gotten hired. This is actually really great. Besides getting hired because I have a PhD, which has nothing to do with my business, I've gotten hired for doing a TED Talk that has a little bit to do with a small subset of clients that I like to take on. But the fact that I have a TED Talk, and if you watch it, you do hear my authenticity, you see my heart, all of those pieces. But people are like, wow, you did a TED Talk. That's amazing. Like, well, okay. But build a YouTube channel of you as a person on video talking to your ideal clients. do podcast interviews about your expertise,
Yeah.
or about just wanting to help people. You know, for me to get on this podcast and talk to you and help students who are going through the dissertation process, that is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm honored to do it. In other spheres, it could actually help build my business, and it could help me build my business here, and I'm helping you build your business. Like, I really do believe in all those relationships. And then you need to network yourself into the ground when it comes. And I always say, you know, I'm Jersey scrappy, right?
Yeah.
So I will weasel my way into networking groups, and have over the years found the right ones for my business, found the right ones for me personally. And I have found a group of people in the professional sphere who support me like no other. And I'm not hesitant at all to reach out and say, okay, sales have dropped. What's going on? Who do you got for me? I need to fill my pipeline again. What, you know, blah, 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 all that. Because you just continually do that.
Right. Yeah. I would say certainly everything that you gave folks is good advice. Going back to that element of choice, you can create content however you want to, but what you want to be thinking about is, if someone finds me and they think they like me, one of the things they're going to want to do is start binging on me. Who am I? What am I doing? You know, if they are a reader and I do blogs, they're just going to read. They might read, you know, 10, 15, 100 blogs. And then they're like, yes, this is the person for me. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to fill out the email. I'm going to do whatever you tell them to do to get in touch with you. But it's anything that a person can kind of binge on. Once they think, yes, this person speaks to me, this person knows me, this person understands me, they want to hear what it is you have to do. And quite honestly, once that happens, that makes the relationship building really easy for you. You get on the phone with someone and there's the celebrity factor. Even though you might be known to like 5 people, they don't know you. They think of you as a celebrity in the same way that they would think of a movie star as a celebrity. Having a celebrity in your niche is all that you need in a business. You don't need to be, again, this little, you know, vacuous celebrity to everyone. You want to be the helping, advising, you know, someone that they know, like, and trust to the people that you serve. And
yeah,
so,
and also, you know, you want to be authentic. Like, that's a really big piece of this. But you also want to position your marketing, and this is something I do for my clients all the time. Position the marketing around what your ideal clients really need from you. Like,
Yeah.
what's their big pain point? You know, it's great that I do social. What's the problem that I solve? My clients are not getting on looking for the greatest social media consultant.
Exactly.
They're looking because they have no digital presence. So really make sure that right from the beginning, like, I do wish that I was a lot tighter. I wish I looked a lot tighter right now, actually. And which is funny because I need to really, you know, tighten up all those pieces, and I can't to save my life because I don't take the time. I should say I choose not to right now.
Right. Physician, heal thyself, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a good point. I'll just to piggyback on the authenticity issue. Don't pretend to be something that you're not, unless you really, really, really are okay with that. Because whatever you put out in the world, that's what people are going to expect when they come to see you. I know some people that like to make sure that everything they present is just perfect. And then when you talk to them, they're not, which no one is, right? But they don't have that high polished, you know, gloss and sheen just when they pop on the video or something like that. They're a little bit more real. And the messaging they sent out there that I'm like, you know, perfect and every hair is right in place, and then they get on and they're like normal, there's a disconnect. Be who you want to be all the time, because whatever message you're sending out there, the people who resonate with that message, that's who you're attracting. And so if you attract people that resonate with this perfect image, and then you show them something that's less than perfect, there's going to be a disconnect. Be who you are, be who you want to be all the time, and you'll get the right people coming to you. When I talked about pushing away the people who won't like you, they just won't come to you. They'll figure out they don't like you from afar, and you will never have to deal with them. You'll only deal with people you like. So tough lesson for folks getting into business, because this idea of pushing people away and not needing and all that kind of stuff is tough when you're first starting out.
Oh yeah.
So tell me a little bit. You mentioned that that you're pretty good about getting out of situations that aren't working, and I know that a lot of A lot of people, particularly when we're talking about business, that can be very, very hard. This idea of the sunken cost, decision trap is something that a lot of people suffer. Tell us a little bit about some of your thoughts on evaluating how and when to get out of a situation.
So there's a lot of things that we do as business owners that we definitely don't see. It doesn't actually increase our bottom line, right? And you have to have them.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have to have the QuickBooks or some sort of accounting system. You have to have a website, but you can't tie results to it. And I think what it really is a matter of is set yourself up with some goals and then chase them like a dog chasing a ball. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you will inherently notice that everything else that you're doing doesn't matter if it's not leading up to your goals. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I've always had a million goals. I am an excellent goal setter. I then am terrible because it's impossible to actually go after, let's say 25 goals. I'm going to have 5 podcast episodes. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to post on LinkedIn every day. And I would drive myself crazy, right? So this year in 2021, I have 3 simple goals. I want 100 clients in my business. I want my book written with a plan to publish. And I want to find the next great love of my life. I went through a divorce in 2020. I was a COVID divorcee. And so I'm revving that up. Every single action that I take during 8 to 5-ish,
right?
The hours I work are weird sometimes, is going towards goal number 1. I want 100 clients in my business. Mm-hmm. Then I spend time every single night. We all have options at night, right? I make sure I get to the gym or exercise or walk or run outside or something. Mm-hmm. And then I have a choice. Am I going to watch television or am I going to write my book? Yeah. Well, watching 3,000 episodes on Netflix is not going to write my book.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of leaving the third goal to find the next great love. I'm leaving that one to the universe because I'm not getting online dating. He's literally going to have to walk in my house.
Right.
But you have to chase their goals.
So there's difficult here during lockdown.
I know, right? So why bother? So, but my point is, we get so wrapped up in, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And people are like, should I be there? And what do I do with this? And I'm like, well, what are your goals? Yeah. And if you're not running towards a goal, then stop and do, some service activity is not like, I have a lot of people who are like, should I go to this business card exchange? So we'll get back to that in the world at some point, I'm sure.
Right.
Well, if you get business from going to a business card exchange and increasing the size of your business is one of your goals, awesome. Or if you do need to just get out of your house and go see people at the bank, because a lot of business card exchanges in my area happen at the networking banks, so they're fine. But that's how I evaluate everything. Is it helping me reach my goals?
I tell folks with their dissertations this all the time. One of the first conversations we have is, what is your why? What are you doing? And in my universe, there's 2 main types of whys, of motivation. One is I'm intrinsically interested in what I'm studying and what I'm doing, and that's something that I really want to pursue. And if that's really why you're doing it, those aren't the folks we work with. So if I talk about pushing people away, that's not the folks I work with. The folks I work with, they want to have their degree so that they can accomplish things on the back end. And then I tell them, okay, your dissertation is now an obstacle to you achieving your goal. It's not something that you want to nurture and invest and spend time in. It's something you want to get done. And you treat those things differently. We have hobbies and we have jobs, and hobbies are things that we like to do until someone pulls us away. And jobs are things that we do as quickly as we can so that we can go somewhere else. And sometimes we're lucky that our hobbies pay us and we can do something we really love and we're doing it all the time. And that's, quote, my job. But in fact, it's just something I love, and I'm going to keep doing it until I have to get up and go eat or something like that. Right. That's awesome in your professional life. But you have to know that if your goal is to get out to the other side, then treat your dissertation like a job, something that you schedule, you punch a clock, you get in, get out, and then you can do those other things. And so when people are looking at what decisions they should make, how should I do this? How should I do that? Should I investigate this little byway here? Well, didn't the committee already say that this project was good enough? Then no, don't go look at that now. You're interested in it, go look at it after you graduate. That's fine. You can do whatever you want to after you graduate. But your goal was you want to graduate so you can do these other things. So let's keep our mind on that.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other thing you mentioned about the book writing, That's one of the reasons why we got into this, because with the shutdown and everything, so many people, it just seemed to be part of the zeitgeist that people were just, self-medicating to Netflix all the time. I'm like, dude, when people wake up in a year or two, they're either going to think it was still, 2019, or, well, I guess it was early 2020 when we shut down in the US, or they're going to say, I accomplished something. I did something. Here it is. I'm a published author now. I, finished my doctoral degree. So that's what we're hoping to help folks with to some extent.
Right.
Yeah, cool. What are you doing when you mentioned the book? What are you doing with that? How are you approaching that part of the process for you, or that goal?
So I have to be honest with you, I'm not in a position to talk about exactly what I'm writing on. However, I will share, and this is sort of what happened in my dissertation. So you would think I would have learned the lesson, and it's come back now almost 10 years later to bite me again.
Okay.
I started writing a book, and it was 385 pages,
Wow.
8.5 Google Drive pages, 8.5 by 11, single space, 12-point font.
So many.
And I put on what?
That would be many more pages in a book.
That'd be like 1,000 pages, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of autobiographical. So I said, okay, let me put on my qualitative dissertation research hat here and pull out the themes.
Yes.
So rather than tell the whole story, which I intend to at some point, it's the most important points that I want to get out there to the world right now.
Yeah.
And to your point about, getting through the dissertation, the question that you have is, how can you help as many people as soon as possible?
Yeah.
Putting out a 1,000-page book is not going to help everybody quickly. Right. It's an interesting story that's much harder to sell, much harder to publish. God knows I would need like an editorial staff of 25 to catch all the typos. So what I was able to do was pull out those themes. And I'm having the time of my life writing the book now, because one of the things that I do well in the world is make fun of myself, right? Self-deprecating humor kind of gets me through most days, and a little bit of New Jersey, New Yorker sarcasm. And I'm able to interject that into a story that is not all that happy.
Yeah.
And say, look, I got to here and you can as well.
Yes.
And so again, I drive back to the ability to help people. And, as when I created my TED Talk, it's the Martin Luther King, JFK Jr. There's a cadence and a process to the way that they wrote their speeches.
Yeah.
And that's the way that you write a book. It's, okay, this is where you want to be, but now you're down here. So let me tell you a story and then tell you how to fix it. And so I'm putting that in every chapter. And it's a fascinating process because it's actually fun. And I'm writing to my ideal client, my ideal reader, who is really going to be able to read this, and it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. So many important things in that. Folks that are coming out of the dissertation process, they get beaten with the stick about how you're supposed to write in a way that's so constrained and boring and clinical. And then when you come out and you want to write again for something else, particularly if you want to write a book that anybody's going to read, because one of the questions I ask folks sometimes when they're putting this love and attention into their dissertation, how many people are going to read your dissertation after you graduate? And I
hope no one.
One guy told me, I know one. It's like, you talking about your mom? And he was like, yes. I was like, your mom's not reading your dissertation. She's going to tell you that she read it, and you're going to be nice enough not to ask her anything about it. You're not going to quiz her on it, and you guys are both not going to talk about it again. So, nobody's going to read your dissertation when you graduate. That's just the way it is. Now, somebody says, oh, somebody read my dissertation. Great. It does happen. I mean, there's a community out there. But in the real world, the 99% of people who don't have their doctoral degrees don't read dissertations for any reason whatsoever. So you've got to write a book if you want to talk to those people. And when you do, you want to talk to them like you're talking to them. Stories, anecdotes, jokes, humor, personality. And that's something that sometimes doctoral students have a hard time, like switching that other thing off after they got kind of electroshock therapy into, okay, I got to do it this way. Well, now you want to be more of a person again, and you want to really express yourself so that those people feel like they have a relationship with you and you're not just teaching them.
Yeah.
Most important thing when you're communicating is to entertain. Again, my business coach brought this up, like, who gets paid more money, the president of Harvard or any actor you know? And by all accounts, Harvard's one of the best institutions we have in the country, and the top person there is probably making less than, again, any actor that you know. So
Absolutely.
entertain, that's what we value in this country, entertain, and sneak the education in with the entertainment.
Right.
So cool. Well, Dr. Gardella, tell folks how they can reach out to you if they, have questions for you, if they want to continue this conversation, if they have some SEO issues with their own fledgling businesses or their own thriving businesses. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So I love for people to communicate with me as they like to communicate, and I'm all over the web. So you can definitely reach me through my website, jennifergardella.com. There's a very simple way right now to book a call with me, and I'm happy to talk to you. If you're more of a social media person, I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Dr. Jenny Lynn. Talk about good branding, right? Might as well use that. And then you can also reach me on email at jennifer@yoursocialmediahour.com. Or I'm all on LinkedIn, and I love to connect with people on LinkedIn because LinkedIn provides a way for me to get a really big sense of who you are before we even get on the phone. So it's neat.
Very cool. Well, we'll put all that in our show notes. So if anyone wants to go to our blog at dissertationdone.com/blog, you can find Dr. Gardella's episode there, and we'll have all the social media contacts, the TEDx Talk, we'll link that in so people can see that. I want to, thank you for joining us here today. It's been a great talk. I had a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. This is great. I think you're doing great work with people, helping them with their dissertation, and then helping them find very non-traditional degrees, careers outside of, the standard academic path.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main thing is for folks to understand that, listen, this stuff is hard. So understand that if you're struggling, that doesn't make you different. Everybody struggles at some point. So don't feel like you're alone. Do get a support structure. If that's us, if it's someone else, if it's, find people who have been there though, because if it's just your mom and your brother and they've never gone through a doctoral degree program, as great as they might be at being cheerleaders, psychologically, you do need support from people who've been there or who are going through it with you. Yeah. So make sure you think about that. But with those things and just some tenacity, you can get through this. And then all the cool things that people are doing on the other side, it's so worth it. So if you are pursuing a doctoral degree, keep going, don't stop.
Absolutely.
The Winston Churchill quote, right? If you're going through hell, don't stop. So,
yeah, I think there's a few country songs about that too. If you're going through hell, just keep going.
Keep going, keep going. So I'll remind folks once again that today's episode has been brought to you by Dissertation Done. So if you're thinking about working on or struggling with the dissertation, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. We've got our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program, and I'd be happy to talk to you, see if you might be a good fit for that. And if you are interested in really being a part of that expert space, you want to be a coach, a counselor, a public speaker, whatever it might be, get your book done. And we can help you with that. Go to dissertationdone.com/book. Once again, Dr. Gardella, thank you so much. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. And for everyone else, I would like you to have a wonderful day and go out and live your unconventional life. See you later.
This has been An Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.